Enhance your workflow with Azore's Unite Zones feature. This in-depth tutorial, led by one of Azore's developers, Paul, walks through the example of a large building and how to use Unite Zones to build complex models and set boundary conditions more easily. Unite Zones does not alter the mesh itself, but allows grouping and categorizing of zones.
So basically, what I'm talking about here is breaking your domain down into smaller parts and putting it back together in Azore. This works better or worse depending on what mesh are you using. With Gambit, it's not that hard, though I did recently use it with the water type mesher and a Gambit mesh, and I was able to put them together with an interface. So I want you to be aware, and sometimes this can, depending on the complexity of your model, can make it a lot easier to build. So I just opened up this, and this is a section of a building. And for this particular model, there were 13 of this same section. So rather than trying to build them all, and then there were multiple buildings with the same thing in it. So this was just a way of making that better to import. So I've imported this, and if I import the same thing again, it's going to be on the same position. Scale. So under here, just point out here in this, the newer scaling window, there's a choose what units you created this in. So you don't have to remember this number every time and hopefully, get it correct. That was just for free. So this one, before I import the next one, I'm going to translate it over 480. Always be aware, I haven't scaled this thing yet, so it's all still in meters. So I just transferred 480 meters, but eventually it'll be inches, but don't worry about that yet. Now I go to grid, merge domain, and you can either do an import or open database or an open reset. And since I just opened this one, it's right there at the top. It's saying, do you want to do the same thing again? Yes, I do. So there I go. Brought them in together. So now you can see how manually you just do this with whatever things you do. You may need to translate it around. You want to keep in mind that these are still two completely different domains. So the walls between these, you would need to fuse before you do anything else with them, or else you have different domains. All right, so that was the manual method. Now, an example of doing this in a script. Can you see that up there, hopefully? Here, I just have a very simple example of doing basically the same thing again. I'm going to import that. I'm going to move it over, merge in a second one, move it over, merge in the third one. And since I've already gone through and I figured out what faces I need to fuse, I have that in my script also. So let me go back here, close that, and I'm going to run this script. Boom, boom, rings in 3, and it's already got my faces fused together. So it's all a single domain. Now, I just want to show you some things that you can do with this Unite. So I've brought in 3 of the same domain, basically. And so there's repeated 3 times every surface. And so, actually, first, let me point this out. When you have something like this and you right click over here, you'll see there's an option, group separated zones. If you do that, it just takes everything that has a similar number ending and sticks it all in the same thing. So it's basically the menu, just a way of collapsing your menu down. You can still individually turn them off and on. It's just an organizational thing, but be aware that that's there. But right, let me back up here. So you've got the separate combined surfaces window, separate interior, fuse exterior, create interface. All of these mess with your mesh a little. So if you separate an interior, you have an interior surface, it's going to separate it into two walls. So you're going to have duplicates of your vertices and edges and faces at that point. When you fuse them back together, it puts them back the way they were. Same thing with the creating interface. It's going to take two different things and kind of make them into one surface. In contrast, there's the unite and divide. And I didn't call them separate and combine because we'd already used those words, but you could. You think about it, every face and cell in your model is assigned to some boundary condition. So basically, you just have these bins of faces and cells. What the unite and divide do is they take some faces or cells and put them in different buckets. So your mesh itself isn't changing any, just how you're assigning it to different things is changing. So with the unite, what I can do is simplify things. So say, for example, I have, show it here, I have these three things that are called ground, which are separate. And, I don't care if they're separate. I go over here to exterior surfaces. Oh, I want to unite them, but it won't let me. The reason it won't let me is because those are on three different volumes that are named. And any named exterior surface could only be on one named volume. So what I can do instead, first I can go to volumes. I want to unite these three, but first I'm going to uncheck this button here, unite adjacent surfaces. Before I had that checked, and I'll get back to what that's doing. So I unite my three volumes, which you see is very quick because all it's doing is moving things into one bucket. If I look at my volumes now, there's only one fluid where there had been three, occupies those three. Now I can go back, and now it'll let me select all three of those grounds because now they're all part of the same volume. And it will unite those into a single ground. So be aware of that if you're trying to unite something. There's rules of what it can unite and what it can't. Same goes for interior surfaces. An interior surface has to be completely within a given volume or between two different volumes, and it has to be consistent. Under that, unite. Under the volumes, there's this unite adjacent surfaces. So what that does, say I unite those three volumes, then it looks at all the surfaces on those which have similar names, the same ending numbers, and says, oh, maybe you want to unite those surfaces at the same time as you're doing the volumes. Well, then there's the super button, the unite, automatic unite. And what this does, it starts with all the volumes. It looks at which volumes can be united and have similar names. And then it recursively goes through and unites. If you have this button checked, it will also unite the faces. So this is the one, you push this, and then it starts chugging seemingly a long time because it's uniting a lot of stuff. This can be helpful when you have, like I said, I had 13 of these in one thing, and you get you end up with a very long list of surfaces. The problem is, if you have certain named surfaces that you don't want it to unite, it will unite them anyway. So you need to have caution in over uniting things. All right, so now you can see everything is largely gone. The divisions, the extra lists of stuff I had gone. So it takes your database, and if you have stuff like that, and sucks it down to a more manageable number.